Hi and welcome to a narrated malifaux miniature battle report with Pandora versus Sandeep. Sandeep comes in the form of his font of magic, which is more of an artillery piece in my opinion, really good at placing a lot of peer markers all over the table. With us we also have Shastra Void Guard, a Wind Gamin, 2 Fire Ganmins, his Trusted Totem Banasuva, Oxfordian Mage, Fire Golem, and Kudra. Pandora comes in the normal version, and the normal Pandora playstyle is to walk in a group, which means that they're gonna be affected by the peer marker quite a lot. However, the Totem Poltergeister has telekinesis, which can remove all peer markers, so there are some solutions to the problem. Pandora also brings Candy, Aversion, Carver, Iggy, and Sorrow, and a versatile Hooded Rider. Deployment is wedged, so we will be at each other's throats quite fast. It will be a slugfest in the middle. The main strategy is break the line, where you push markers across the center line to gain victory points. Additional schemes are breakthrough, detonate charges, assassinate, claim jump, and bait and switch. Both players choose assassinate and claim jump as their schemes. So both players intend to smash their way forward with their main army, trying to claim jump and kill the opponent, Sandeep with peer markers and Pandora with auras. So let's start the match and see how that works out. Wind Gamin is the first model to activate. First action, focus. Green rubber bands marks how much focus you have. When it focuses, it will move a model, moving Sandeep a little bit and move itself. Then, second action, walk. Bonus action, leap. Leaping over to the objective. Next turn, it will be able to interact and move the objective. Aversion activates. It uses Frightened Reminder to push Pandora forward as a bonus action. Then, both action, walk forward to the objective. Banasuva activates and walks forward. Second action, focus. Green rubber bands marks how much focus you have. A bunch of triggers happen, dropping a peer marker. Then moving the peer marker a tiny bit forward. This will give Banasuva burning and the Fire Golem burning as well. Red rubber bands marks how much burning you have. Banasuva is then using the bonus action Lord of Elementals to make an action with the Fire Golem, which is a flame tornado shockwave that is placed right here, affecting both Pandora and Aversion. Pandora then activates and drops a shockwave in the middle of all the enemy models, hitting Banasuva, Sandeep, and the Fire Golem. The Fire Golem is being hit and loses its burning and gains damage. Black rubber bands marks how much damage that you have. Second action, self-loading twice at Banasuva. Banasuva takes some damage and gains slow. Oxfordian Mage activates, moves forward, and focus. At the end of its turn, you can discard a card with Sandeep's ability to make an elemental activate, making Banasuva focus again, creating more peer markers and gaining more shield and focus. Now the Sorrow activates. First action, Mystery Loves Company to jump straight onto the ally Aversion. Then interact action to move the objective. You don't gain any victory points for turn 1, but if it stays there until the end of turn 2, Pandora will gain a victory point. The Fire Gamin activates and walks on top of the barrels and focus. And when it focuses, it drops a peer marker and moves a peer marker. It also gains shielded. Yellow rubber bands marks how much shielded you have. The Carver activates and uses all of its action to move forward. Both sides are getting really close at each other, but it is really risky to just charge in the first thing you do straight into those pyre markers and really big units. The next Fire Gamin is moving up to the top of the barrel and then focusing again, building a really big powerful base to fire from. But now it's time for the Hooded Rider to activate. Using Ride with me, making Candy move a little bit forward, and then it is charging Sandeep through the pyre marker, gaining some burning. Sandeep ends up taking 4 damage. Kudra activates and moves forward. Bonus action, Delusion on the Hooded Rider, but it fails. Elemental Bolt on the Rider. Iggy activates using free walk action from Reckless by gaining fast, taking a damage, reaching the Wind Imp. They're gonna fight it out on the next turn about who is going to move this objective forward. Sandeep activates using etheric control 3 times on the enemy, dropping 3 peer markers. The peer marker is gonna stay there and be annoying, but also shockwave, damage 2, burning 2 if you're hit. Pandora, Aversion, Sorrow and the Carver all take some damage and starts to burn. Sandeep wanna use Moment of Reflection to move a little bit away from the Hooded Rider and heal himself. But he flips a Black Joker, which is really bad, so no healing and has to stay in the position. At the end of his activation, he uses Student of All by discarding a card to make the Fire Golem make a Flaming Fist attack from Sandeep at the Hooded Rider. The Hooded Rider takes 3 damage and gains burning. The Poltergeister activates, moves forward. It is using its telekinesis ability to remove all peer markers or all markers within 4 inches. The Fire Golem activates and uses its Flame Tornado on the 3 models standing in front of him, the Sorrow, Aversion and the Carver. They don't take any damage from the shockwave by properly sheeting some fade. And now it is Candy's turn to activate. She moves straight forward into these barrels. She has some really nasty AoE effects and a lot of enemy models are really close to her. But she decides to use a second action to heal the Hooded Rider with her goodie basket. Shazatar Vivid Guard activates and focus. When it focuses, it's pushed forward a tiny bit. He then discards a card to make the Fire Gamin make an action from the Student of All ability from Sandeep. This is where turn 1 ends and a bunch of models takes damage from burning. Now you can't see it, I'm sorry, bad photograph, but the Hooded Rider has 3 life remaining after taking some burning damage. He's actually going to die to burning at the end of turn 2. The Hooded Rider is the first model to activate turn 2 by charging Sandeep. Sandeep doesn't take any damage from the attack, but the Hooded Rider has another trick up its sleeve. It uses the bonus action Revel in Secrets by discarding all fate tokens it's acquired and using a soulstone to activate Malifaux Revolt. Until the end phase, enemy models treat the area within 6 inches as hazardous terrain. This move is genius as all academic models are basically inside that area and they're going to take 1 damage for each action they make until they get rid of the Hooded Rider. Killing the Hooded Rider is now the #1 priority. This job shouldn't be too hard. Just a Vivid Guard charges the Hooded Rider but also moves Kudra a little bit more back. But both of his balanced sword attacks miss and he ends up taking a bunch of damage from the hazardous terrain. Pandora activates and moves forward towards the cover position. Pandora's second action, Fear Given, form a shockwave in the midst of all the enemy models. Third action, the bonus action, the box open. The Academy cheats fate to avoid the willpower duel, so no damage and no stun, but a lot of cards were lost. Pandora is in a really good position, standing behind cover looking at the enemy, and from here she can operate freely. Last action, self-floating at the Banasuva, removing the burning condition to gain a bonus flip against the Banasuva, but the attack still miss. Kudra activates and uses focus, taking a damage from the hazardous terrain. Then use delusion, the bonus action, taking another damage from the hazardous terrain again on the Hooded Rider. If this attack succeeds, we will move the Hooded Rider away 7 inches and it won't do anything for the rest of the turn. And it's going to die then at the end of the turn for burning. But the attack fails and the Hooded Rider remains at its current position. Instead we charge it, but the attack in close combat miss. But at the end of this turn, we're using the Student of All on the Banasuva to make a close combat attack on the Hooded Rider from the Kudra. Banasuva's attack hits, but it only deals weak damage, 2 damage total. If it would have been moderate, the Hooded Rider would have died, but it still remains alive. And it maintains its hazardous terrain effect on all the academic models in its AoE. And by just maintaining this AoE effect, it had already done a lot of damage. The Sorrow activates. It moves forward, then use Misery Loves Company and places itself into base contact with Sandeep. It has an aura ability Life Leech, which means that whenever something activates within it, that thing takes damage and the Sorrow heals. Then it uses Glimpse of Insanity on Sandeep, giving Sandeep stun. Fire Gamin activates, attacking the Hooded Rider with its Flame Blast. But this time the Hooded Rider finally dies. So second action, Flame Blast at the Candy. Hit with weak damage, but it's AoE blast, so we're also hitting Pandora. Aversion activate. It's currently going to die at the end step of its burning, but it can still do some stuff. It walks forward and interacts with the main objective, pushing it a little bit more forward. Now that the Hooded Rider is dead, Sandeep can finally activate without taking damage from the hazardous terrain. He still takes damage from the Life Leech, from the Sorrow, but he can activate. Now, he's also stunned, so the Moment of Reflection counts towards his normal amount of action. So he's doing Moment of Reflection and then 2 Edric Control. Placing the first blast on top of Pandora, hitting the Aversion, Pandora and Candy. Second blast placed on Candy. This means that when Candy activates, she's going to activate on a peer marker. But Pandora has the Poltergeister with the counter ability Telekinesis to remove the peer markers before Candy activates. First action Walk, second action Telekinesis, removing all the fire. It is now time for the Banasuva to activate. First action Walk forward, second action Focus, and when it focuses, it drops a peer marker. And it predicts that the Carver is going to charge at the Banasuva, so it drops a peer marker where the Carver might want to place himself. So if the Carver wanna comes over, it has to walk through the fire. Then Banasuva is using the bonus action Lord of Elementals to make the Fire Golem make an action. But the action fails, and the Academy don't have any cards remaining in the hand to cheat fate for a success. The Carver now activates, walks through the peer marker and charges the Banasuva. But its attack doesn't hit. The Fire Golem now activates and uses Flame Tornado twice, but both action fails. So Iggy activates and uses its Flaming Fury twice on the Wind Gamin. But both attacks miss. Candy now activates and is trying to use Glimpse of Insanity on Sandeep, but Sandeep has a really high willpower and resists the effect. He's not stunned. She then moves a tiny bit backwards. Oxfordian Mage charges the Sorrow. One of the attack hits and the Sorrow takes a tiny bit of damage. The Wind Gamin activates and first attacks with its sharp claws using its focus, but it misses. It then uses the bonus action Leap and interacts with the main objective, pushing it forward. Turn 2 ends and Aversion dies to Burning, and both sides gains a victory points for the main objective.
Round 3.
The first model to activate is the Fire Golem using Draw Flame to jump over to the Banasuva. That was a bonus action. It now has 2 normal activations left, so it's using Flame Tornado twice at the Candy, Pandora, and the Poltergeister. Poltergeister with its move 6 is actually the one that is being hit twice by the Flame Tornado. Candy and Pandora is only hit once. But this was a little bit risky. Pandora is using self-loading on the Fire Golem, removing the fire condition from the Fire Golem to make a bonus flip, making the Fire Golem hit himself. Pandora's second action, bonus action, the box open. However, the Fire Golem, Banasuva and Fire Gamin all succeed with the willpower duel. Then, Pandora's third action, Fear's Given Form Shockwave. Banasuva succeeds with a flip, but the Fire Golem fails and takes a lot of damage. Currently, 2 life remaining. Fire Gamin activates and moves a tiny bit backwards and fires the Flame Blast at the Carver. But it misses. The Poltergeister now activates and moves forward straight into the mist and uses telekinesis to remove all the markers, the appear markers around it. The Fire Golem has to cheat Fate to survive the AoE effect, but the Banasuva takes 3 damage from the telekinesis. The Fire Gamin activates and fires twice at the Carver using focus at each shot. Candy activates, attacking with self-loading on the Banasuva and the Fire Golem. This is killing the 2 heavy hitters. Banasuva drops a peer marker at the Poltergeister and Carver, and on death the Fire Golem also drops a peer mark. Now 2 big heavy hitters are dead for the Academy. Oxfordian Mage activates, but when it does, the Sorrow's life leech trigger and drains a life from it. Oxfordian Mage is then attacking the Sorrow twice with its flaming fury, but it doesn't do much. In the end, Sorrow only healed on this activation. The Carver activates and charge the Oxfordian Mage through the peer marker, gaining more burning, but then it hacks and slashes and carves on the Oxfordian Mage until it dies. Sandeep activates and begins with Moment of Reflection to move himself a little bit to the side, as well as healing himself a little bit and healing Kudra as well, and then Etheric Control on the Carver. This means that on turn 4, the Carver will activate on a peer marker, then Etheric Control 2 more times. Pandora and Candy will now also activate on a peer marker on turn 4. Except that the Poltergeist is probably gonna do its little cool trick again. Turn 3 ends and Pandora gains a victory point from Claim Jump, Candy being in the center of the battlefield. Sadly for the Academy, the Fire Golem was the one on the Claim Jump mission, and the Fire Golem is now dead. It is currently 2-1 to Pandora.
Round 4.
The Poltergeister begins by using telekinesis to remove the peer markers. Then it charges this tiny little imp and smash it. The Fire Gamin takes some damage, but it's not dead. Shastar Vivid Guard activates and uses the bonus action Follow My Path to move Kudra. Then he throws Chakram at the Poltergeister that will then bounce and hit the Carver as well. Pandora activates and begins with Fear's Given Form and drops a shockwave. Only Sandeep fails the shockwave, and then after some self-loading he's down to only 3 life. But the Fire Gamin also dies to this shockwave, but on death it drops a peer marker on the Poltergeister and the Carver. The Carver is killed by Kudra's elemental bolt. Iggy moves towards the objective, interacts and places it on the other side of the house. The Wind Gamin can actually counter this by using Leap, but it flips a black joker. If it wouldn't have flipped a black joker, it would have placed itself and then made 2 interact actions to send the marker back to the center line. And this is where Sandeep concedes, because now mathematically, when that happened, he can't catch up in victory point. It is actually possible to summarize things from here. Candy can't claim a secondary victory point from the Claim Jump, because her life is just too low. She actually ends up dying to burning at the end of turn 5. Iggy was also really close at dying, but the Wind Gamin just couldn't get enough claws to hit. Pandora was going to die at the end of turn 5, but because we played out the game a little bit mathematically, we could see Candy could heal Pandora with 2 Goodie Basket activations. However, she didn't climb above half her life total, so Sandeep still gains 1 victory point from Assassinate. But in the end it wasn't enough. The game ends with a 4-3 to Pandora. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked the video.